Let's be real, most executives are running on empty, and it's creating a tsunami of dysfunction that's destroying organizations from the inside out. But what if I told you there's actual science behind why this happens and real tools to fix it? I'm Ryan Kohler, and this is Talent Talk. Today I'm talking with Gary De Rodriguez, CEO of Peopleistic and known as the People Mechanic, who just dropped some mind-blowing research that'll change how you think about leadership forever. Here's the stat that stopped me cold. Humanistic companies that actually invest in their people's emotional well-being made 206% greater profit over 10 years compared to traditionally run organizations. Wild, right? But here's what Gary really opened my eyes to. 95% of our behavior runs on subconscious programs from childhood trauma. So when executives are burned out and reactive, that contamination spreads like wildfire through every level of the organization. So here's what we're diving into. Gary's neuroscience-based approach to decoding the nervous system from painful memories, why you can't lead without emotional regulation, and his three-step framework that puts self-leadership first, people intelligence second, and technology third. If you've ever wondered why organizational change never seems to stick, or why even successful leaders feel like imposters, this conversation is going to blow your mind. This gets deep fast. Let's dive in.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to another awesome episode of Talent Talks. I'm your host, Emily Alvarez, and I am really excited today to be joined by our guest, Gary De Rodriguez. He is the CEO of Peopleistic, and he is also known as the People Mechanic, helping about 30,000 people. He is joining us from the Ozarks. So thanks for being here, Gary.
It's my pleasure, Emily. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Gary, you just recently did an awesome talk at SHRM in Gulf Coast in Texas, right? In Houston? Yeah, and tell us a little bit about the topic because this topic is one that I was really fascinated and interested in when I read about it, specifically because it's one that I believe is critically under-discussed, probably because of the sensitive nature of the topic. It probably isn't something that's really openly discussed in workplaces, although it should be. Maybe not in front of an entire company, but it should be thought about and talked about in the sense of culture, right? And how we can build a more stable culture. So the topic was executive burnout and top down burnout and how that affects the culture of a company and the workplace in an organization. And so you've had a lot of experience with this over the years, correct? What does that look like throughout your experience over the years?
What it looks like is at the top. Let me just pre-frame this for
Sure.
you can't lead unless you can establish and earn trust. You can't earn trust unless you have consistency and congruency in your behavior so that your word, thought, and your actions are aligned.
Right.
If you do not have emotional regulation, which of course executive burnout completely destroys, if you do not have emotional regulation, then it'll take you 3 years to establish trust with the team and one conversation to break it. So the idea that we need to have better, higher, deeper skills at the executive level because upper management is modeling the C-suite,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Mid-management
absolutely.
is modeling the upper management, and team leads are modeling middle management. So if the C-suite is contaminated, overstressed, reactive, not proactive, but reactive. They have no psychological safety at the C-suite level amongst the team that compromises the C-suite or
Right.
develops it. They do not have generally psychological safety there. What happens there is things are pitted against one another. Therefore, upper management will be divided up as well. Because in most upper management demographics that I've worked with, they are working directly with one or more of the C-suite executives. But when the C-suite executives are in conflict, upper management becomes in conflict with one another as well. that bleeds down and bleeds down and bleeds down. So there's a ripple at the top, there's a tsunami wave at the bottom.
Right.
And so the whole contamination begins by the relationships that comprises the C-suite. Now, the executive burnout happens because most people have one eye looking forward and one eye looking behind them to see if anyone else recognizes that they don't know what they're doing. And I mean that in the most respectful way, because no one that enters a high level position feels like they're fully prepared for it, for all of the things that will come at you, for all of the demands that it will make upon you. Here you are at the pinnacle of your career, and you still feel like you don't know enough. I've been there. I've run companies with 100 employees, and I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm successful, and now I'm scared because there's so many things I have to juggle and so many decisions I have to make, and I do not know if I'm making the right ones. And the most critical stress factors were the people I had to work with.
Right.
So this is happening across the boards at the C-suite level. Compounding that, the individuals in the C-suite, because I have tremendous compassion for that demographic,
Absolutely.
their work life may be empowered. They may be in a power seat there. But when they walk into the doors of their homes, generally, not always, but generally, they spend so much time in their career, the kids don't even know them
Right.
nor respect them. Secondarily, their wife or husband is like, I'm so over this. I get none of my needs met. You're getting all your needs met. I've sacrificed all of this so that you could be here, and I'm getting fed scraps from your table, if that. So the
Right.
dissatisfaction within the home, the stress factors in the home are tremendously overwhelming. And so the C-suite executive feels successful in one context and a complete failure in another context, which makes this phenomenal conflict inside of themselves of fraudulence.
I was just gonna say, this sounds to me a lot like tying into imposter syndrome.
Absolutely. And
And and also a sense of imbalance and failure, right? Because you're
completely.
not able to balance the things in your life. And I mean, I've experienced this as well, where you come home and your partner is irritated because you're an hour late for dinner, or you can't make it to your kids', game because you got caught in a late meeting or something happens and you are not present for your family or something that you needed to be there for because something exploded or some crisis happens and you have to be there. And so I think that balance gets thrown off, and for some people that happens all the time. For some people it's occasionally, and that can cause immense strain on a relationship, which can then be difficult to leave at the doors when you come into the office.
Well, I want to speak to what's really underneath all of it.
Yes.
But these are symptomologies that we're talking about right now. They're
Yes,
not the
absolutely.
root cause. So the root cause of it all, um, people generally strive for power and success because at some level they are proving something either to themselves or to someone else.
Right.
So, what we don't put into the equation and we don't speak about is that silent aquifer underneath the level of the conscious mind. So 95% of us rest at the subconscious level, 5% at the conscious by estimations by neuroscience.
Right.
So let's just say that we can assume that that is true to some degree. That means that what we're being run by is unconscious programs. So if I grow up in a home that my father doesn't acknowledge me, my mother rejects me, and I either you go very fragile or you become anti-fragile. So I'm an anti-fragile kind of guy. Lived through a lot of trauma. I got anti-fragile. I got stronger. I got more determined. I did all of
Yes.
those things. Some people break. They go into addictions. They go into codependent relationships. They go into toxic relationships to try to find someone to give them the love they never got.
Right.
Or you go anti-fragile and you prove yourself over relentlessly, over and over, climbing that ladder to the next level of how you can finally say to yourself, dude, you have arrived.
Right.
And, but what's actually happening, it's built on the foundation of a whole host of memories that say you're not. So,
Right.
an internal level within an executive will be that silent voice, three voices back, that's going, I'm still proving myself. And not only that, when they make a mistake, there's an excess amount of anxiety that rises and they attempt to squail it amongst everyone
Right.
and not have it be seen. So not only does the individual have the stress factor of carrying that with them, but they also have the stress factor of trying to hide it and keep it suppressed. Rather than face it, deal with it, neutralize it, and come back to the authentic individual that you always were and that you came here to be. So there is people always say, why doesn't organizational change ever work? It's because people are not going deep enough, not providing the tools that actually work on a neuroscience level to help
Right.
individuals decode their nervous systems from the painful events of their past that have shaped the unconscious aquifer that's running the show. Once that happens, you can identify your values, align your values, get your values, your words, your thought, your beliefs, and your actions into alignment with those values, which makes you an unstoppable force for balanced, well constructed, consistent leadership because you're not carrying around the crucible of your past unconsciously underneath everything else that you're doing.
I love that you just said that, and I think there is an interesting thought that just occurred to me. And I wouldn't say this is true in every company I've ever worked for or every team that I've ever worked on. But every most organizations I've worked for has company values, right? That they have when you start with them, and they'll say things like, "Oh, we have a company value of being honest or being having integrity or having humility or having, these values that a lot of companies have." And normally they have them on a poster up in a wall or they're on the website and they're pretty clearly defined. We have these values, right? And they're great values. They're values that pretty much every organization has. You hope every organization runs with integrity. You hope they run with, humility and those types of things. Um, these are things that I believe though we should as human beings run just naturally. I mean, if you're, running from a place of being a good human, like these are things you should do. What's interesting that you said though was I believe that if you are really taking the time to discover like who you are as an executive leader, like let's say a CEO and you have a company or a founder or somebody, and you've taken that time to dig really deep into yourself, you probably will have those values, but you'll probably have some values that are much, much deeper than those surface level, like be, be honest, be integral, be this, be that. You'll probably find when you start doing that work that when you dig down deep, that you'll probably have some pretty deep stuff under there that you'll discover that you'll pull some values out of that maybe you didn't know were rooted in there somewhere.
Well, there's a whole system because values are quite unconscious. There's a whole system of contrastive analysis that I use to actually get to values. There's some good assessments out there, but they will never, ever, ever be completely accurate because unless the person contrasts their values and really are forced to look at two values, say, is this more important than this? Unless they're able to do
Mm,
that, I always say pick 20 values that are the most
Right.
important values to you in your life. We're going to contrast every single one of them. And I'm going to have you under the microscope, and smoke will be coming out of your ears because you have to really think this through. So, one
Yeah.
of the most important things in developing organizational values is when I go into an organization, I never start with organizational values. I get the C-suite together and we do their individual values.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, why would
Yeah.
you do that? Because if the organizational values are not in alignment with the individual values of every team member in that position,
Right.
they're not going to engage in behavior those organizational values because they may be contrary to their personal values. So, first, personal values. Second, organizational values. When people are very clear about what they most care about in their life, then they have the clarity to define the organizational values and the individual strength to enact those in word, thought, and action. The worst possible thing an organization can do in onboarding. So listen up, HR. In
Yeah.
onboarding
Please.
is when they go over the organizational values. And the new recruit is like, oh, this is awesome. I love a company that thinks this, cares about that. And then their first day on the floor, none of those values are being acted by anyone.
Yep.
So, this is where value based decision making comes in. First of all, you have to define, like I said before, individual C suite, define your personal values, then the organizational values. Then any decision that's made has to be contrasted, whether that decision is going to enhance, empower the beliefs, be a demonstration of the values that the company says they stand for, to
Right.
be able to execute those decisions in such a way that increase the importance of those values every decision they make year after year after year. If they have a team member that is not a demonstration of those values or that doing completely contrary, they get to get written up
Yeah.
and released unless they are able to abide by those values. It is so important when they're hired. They get to say, these are the values, these are the code of our ethics, this is
Yes.
how we treat one another, and these are the standards in which you will be held by and reviewed on.
Yes.
So the human-centered metrics have to be established. The new recruit or new team member that's coming on board needs to understand that they will be given human-centered metric assessments monthly. So that what HR doesn't do is they don't gather enough data to say
Right.
these are the human-centric metrics. So let's say it's leadership trust index. And then on the measurable outcome metrics, does the leadership or customer satisfaction increase with the increased leadership trust index?
Right.
Are they parallel? Does professional development participation pair with internal promotional rates? Does that
Right.
happen? And then does team psychological safety pair with innovation adoption rates? So when we're able to analyze what are human metrics and then what is our measurable outcome metrics and show that our human metrics did this, the measurable outcome metrics did this as a consequence, then HR has leverage in the boardroom.
I 1,000% agree with you. And I think um that's where a lot of HR struggles, right? And I think it's at least in organizations I've seen where HR has got to come again, HR listen up, has got to come to the table sometimes with ways to measure human
Leverage.
metrics.
They have to leverage
Yeah,
because if
because
they don't leverage,
otherwise they're not going to get a seat at that table.
no, no.
Because my experience is, I mean, we're talking about executive burnout, right? And we're talking about executives kind of getting into themselves and looking inward, right? But I also know from dealing with a lot of executives over the years that they want to look at numbers, right? There's a lot of times a hard stop if you can't show me the numbers, right? They have a hard time seeing the space between the numbers, which is normally the people. The
Well,
people are the border,
they
right?
need both.
They need both. Yeah, two
If,
things can be true,
right.
right? Two things
They
can be
need
true.
both. If
So we have to come to the table. Oh, sorry for the balloons,
no,
but
we love the balloons.
yeah, the balloons, but we have to come to the table with both.
No,
And
you do.
they have to be able to see the human metrics in addition to the number metrics.
Well, more than see it, they have to
The
pair them.
feel it.
No,
Yeah.
they have to pair them.
Pair it.
They
Yeah.
have to pair. This is what
Yeah.
happens in the human metrics.
Comparables. Yeah.
As a consequence, this is
Yes.
what happens in the measurable
Yeah.
metric. Because unless they pair them, what happens is C-suite's not going to see the importance of the human metrics and the consequences of that improvement in the measurable metrics.
Yeah. You're
So
absolutely
this
right.
that has to be paired.
Yeah.
So the bottom line for the and this goes all the way down because I've been to companies, we've handed out cultural assessments. 5 people will answer them out of a group of 90.
Right.
And constant reminders, constant reminders, constant reminders. So you're not getting the truth.
Sure.
If if the employee is hired in and they are told this is part of the job, this is what you will
It's a
also be
requirement.
valued,
Yes.
evaluated on. Existing employees, this is what you will be evaluated on. You'll have 5 days to once you receive it, 5 days to turn it in. This is part of the KPIs and the evaluation criteria
Right.
for moving up in the organization because we have to improve our culture. And the only way we
Right.
can do that is your voice and your voice alone. We need to know.
Right.
So if that happens, that becomes important. Now, the whole leadership burnout process, because we kind of went down a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
the whole leadership burnout process is that leaders have to understand that they don't know everything. They know their job. They're probably very well versed in their job, and they know their product, they know their service, they know their market.
Right.
All that is, hats off, golden handshakes, it's all wonderful. And there's a whole nother element. Let's talk about succession planning for one moment.
Yes. Because this is an
Because
important piece of this.
absolutely,
Yes.
because as a C-suite ages out, and there's a large swath of companies that their C-suite is aging out, and they're putting people into the pipeline of C-suite succession possibilities. I
Right.
get hired a lot to go in and do leadership breakthrough sessions with people in that C-suite pipeline because the existing C-suite would say they know their business, they know their work, they know how to do this job, and there's something off. So one case comes to mind. I was working um, with this company, and they hired me to do exactly that. I'm sitting with this individual, and we start digging in, and we start digging in. And eventually, after about 3 sessions, he goes, "There's something I have to tell you." And I go, "Okay, great." He said, "I know what the problem is." I go, "I know you do. I'm waiting for you to feel safe enough to bring that up and we can have a conversation about it." He said,
Right.
"When I grew up, I didn't have running water. I didn't have electricity. I barely had shoes. I stunk as a kid to get on a bus and have people make fun of me because I smelled so bad." He said,
Yeah.
"The only thing I could do is shower in a little stream when it was running in the backyard of my home because we just lived in a shack." And he said, "I'm sitting in this room of PhD executives and they want me to come in and be equal. So what happens is I over respond because I'm trying to prove authority in my field and I know it's off, but I can't stop it." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Great." So we went and I said, "Okay, then list out all the times people shamed you. List out all the memories where you felt like you were less than and
Yeah.
you were ignored and that you were made fun of, even back to as little I mean, to the earliest event, which he did.
Right.
Then we went through and we did all the memory resolution work on those really harmful memories because we have to remember the brain is hardwired for protection.
Absolutely.
So what happens for us is that when we get into environments, C-suite or not, we get into environments where we feel like we could be threatened or are vulnerable to the same attacks that happened as a young child, imprint
Right.
years from birth into 7. Our reptilian brain clicks on, dumps cortisol and adrenaline into our body. We go into fight, flight, or freeze immediately. We
Exactly.
have no control over it. It just happens like someone flips a switch, and
It's
then suddenly
instinct.
your
Yeah.
your your mouth is open and words are coming out, and you are losing credibility just by speaking. Not to mention the emotional heat behind what you're saying,
Right.
because you feel like you're under attack when you're actually not. So
Exactly.
this is what happens for many people in high level positions. They have unhealed, deep seated issues that they have never faced. And no, you can't go to a psychologist and do counseling and expect or therapy and get rid of the hard wiring of your nervous system. You need another skill, another tool, which I spent my whole life developing this stuff.
Yeah.
Need another tool because this tool can decode your nervous system in under 30 minutes from any emotional memory that has haunted you your whole life. Why wouldn't you want to know that? And it's also self-facilitatable. So when we talk about how do we train leaders, this is what the problem is. No, you cannot give them a link to a TED Talk. No, you can't send them the latest book from John Maxwell. You
Right.
you can't do that. It's not going to happen. So what happens is that you have to give them the tools that teaches them about the biology of their own emotional states and then the techniques to be able to rewire the nervous system from painful pictures, sounds, and feelings that constitute their memories. Our memories literally are only a database of pictures, sounds, and feelings. I
Right.
always ask people when I'm giving this lecture, I'm going, well, okay, get a memory and not see a picture. So, Emily, do me the pleasure. Get a memory
Yes. Okay.
and get a memory
Yep.
without seeing a picture. So you can't identify the memory by the picture. So see if you can do that and tell me what happens.
It's very difficult to do. It's almost impossible. It's impossible.
It's
It's
impossible. You know
impossible. It's impossible.
why? So
Some picture flashes in there at some
that's
point.
right.
Yeah.
Data point is that we receive about 2 million chunks of data per second. We
Right.
digest about 7 to 10 pieces consciously. The way that we digest it is we make an image of it, we record a sound that represents it, and we have either emotional state or a tactile state.
Right.
So all of our memories, if we just got a memory, we would realize that our memories are just a sequence of pictures, sounds, and feelings wired into our nervous system in a very specific sequence based upon how it entered the nervous system at the point of its transfer into our nervous system. So once we know that, and we know how the nervous system works, we can actually work with that aspect of how it gets wired into us. I'm not going to go into how it works,
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because it's very
but
delicate. Yeah.
it is so easy to do. It is almost criminal. I have trained 13-year-old young middle school girls to save their friends from suicide by giving and teaching them this technique. I've had people come to me and say, "Look, I've got these friends that want to commit suicide because X, Y, and Z is happening to them at home."
Right.
I said, "Do this process with them." And they go and they do the process. 3 years later, they come back and they say, "Oh my God, that totally worked. My friends, my best friend, we're going to college together now." The bottom line is it's so easy to use, it's so easy
Right.
to learn, and it is so amazingly effective. This is why leaders are not given the right tools to actually fix the burnout.
Well, and I think when you frame it like this, too, it's incredibly helpful because one of the things that occurs to me as well is, we talk about executive leaders. Most executive leadership I know are older in age, right? They're not, you were talking about succession, right? They're not, we're not a bunch of spring chickens anymore.
No, we're
Some
not.
of us are getting up there in age. And so we have this also multi-generational split in the workforce right now that is the biggest I've ever seen. So we have like people, in their 20s all the way up into like, in some cases, their 80s, some older than
Absolutely.
that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so um some of these executive level leadership, individual C-suite level leadership are older. And I know this from like my parents' generation and older. There's still a lot of stigma around mental health in this country to an extent,
Tremendously.
right? Huge
Tremendously.
stigma. Yeah. And so it's difficult because I believe that we do have a lot of resources. I mean, we're starting to become more and more aware every day in this country about the challenges with mental health. I mean, let's face it, Reagan did not do us any favors in the 80s when they shut down all the mental health facilities in this country. And it was like all of a sudden, when we were in desperate need of it with Vietnam veterans and all of this stuff that was going on, you know, we just shut all that stuff down and turned a blind eye to it. And people were displaced. And it was like this stigma around it. And that still exists to a large extent. And so I wonder for some of the individuals that are listening to this in C-suite that are of an older generation that maybe don't believe in therapy based or in this uh vulnerability, right? It's called because it is. It takes a level of vulnerability to say, I am going to get into trauma. I'm
I think it's different than that.
You think
I
it's different.
I do. I don't think it's vulnerability. I think it's courage.
Courage. Well, it is definitely
It's
courage to
it's
take
total
that step. Yeah.
it's total courage from the perspective that the only thing that is happening, because obviously talk therapy doesn't work, or we would not have global mental health
Oh,
issues
for sure.
attached to the Freudian models of talk
I
therapy.
think it's a good first step to get your feet wet if
It
you're going to
is,
try
it
to
is,
get into it. But I mean, if you really want to get down into the depths of your soul, it's not going to be your
it's not going to
fixer.
change behavior. It's going to give
No.
you information. You'll feel validated. You'll feel seen. You'll feel understood. And those are important steps in the process.
Right.
However, if we're looking for true transformation, that's not going to give it. This is
Absolutely.
why many of the trainings that are going into organizations are impotent because they're based upon using just that 5% of the brain.
Right.
If we don't work with the other 95%. And there's absolute simple ways to do that that gets true transformation. I've been working with fire departments and working with a lot of the individuals that have a great deal of pain that they've been carrying from adverse memories. But what I'm
Sure.
finding is that people that generally take responsibility for helping others, I believe the C-suite is also filled with those individuals as well.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
generally because what's happening is we couldn't save our own family members. So deep-seatedly inside of us, we have this need to help, but we feel like we have a lot of missed opportunities where we couldn't actually help. So we have a lot of adverse memories around those issues as well. So
Yeah.
we try and we try and we try, and when we fall short of that, from our best efforts, it means that there we are again, like we haven't really succeeded at this one thing. I think people in the C-suite that I've worked with really carry a burden wanting to improve the culture, but
Right.
really coming up short because they're not training the right things. I worked with this one company in Fort Worth, Texas. Um, the C-suite was amazing. They were really amazing. They had a philanthropic outreach. that all of the employees would vote on what we want to do with any excess profit that we want to reach out to the community. So they
Right.
built an entire community for abandoned children and for abused women with children. And I think it was like 8 small homes that they had, that they would rotate people through these homes, giving them a place to live when emergencies occurred.
Oh, nice.
The
Yeah.
employees would contribute to that. The employees would go out and work in the kitchen there. They would go out and they would do all the landscaping and the gardens, and they would do all of that. And it was something that the employees were extraordinarily proud about. I did this process of self leadership training for the C-suite. They said, "Oh, this is fabulous. Let's roll it out to upper management." We did. We rolled
Yeah.
it all the way out down to the customer service representatives. So the whole company had the same language. They had the same tools.
That's
And they
so
held
important.
themselves accountable
Yes.
with the same language that and the same values that everyone was operating from. And the company did this. So
Yeah.
the bottom line is we have to give people, because we don't give people the tools to learn how to emotionally regulate themselves. We
And
don't.
people are not born with that, by the way,
No,
a lot
they're
of that.
not.
Like
They're
we have
not.
this is like stuff we have to learn, and I know this. I was not born like my was not taught in my family. I had to learn that through
Right.
years of going to therapy and doing things because I did not, like you, grew up with a lot of trauma in my family, and no one taught us how to deal with like things in a healthy way. So we had to like learn to do that, like most people.
Yeah, and the tools, they need to be neuroscience based.
Yes.
They need to be able to show that this has an effect on how the picture, sounds, and feelings in someone's head is rotating, because those are the reference points and how people will behave. Because
Yeah.
people are accumulation of their experiences and what they made up about those experiences.
Yep.
Then they develop their values, and their beliefs run what they even see. So the bottom line is HR scratches their head going, I don't know what to do with this complexity of employees that all coming from different imprints from their past, colliding into one place where they all see things slightly differently.
Yep.
So unless the employees are taught that they are 100%, they have to take 100% ownership of their own perspectives. They're taught emotional intelligence. They're taught people intelligence, and they're taught extreme ownership. Unless they're taught that, they do not coexist well. The employee has to be taught about their own self ownership and about the empathy that it takes to be in a group of others with respect and with honor. And when they are, they start to grow in their own personal life. And then they look at the company and going, this is a vehicle for my transformation to even walk into the doors. And that was what was happening at the power company. They were like, the employees were like, this is the only place where anyone's ever cared enough about me to teach me these things so I become a better person.
Yep.
And when a company does that, loyalty goes this way, retention stays stable, and you attract better talent because you're actually operating from one core value, which is a culture of caring,
Yeah.
which is one of the 9 cultural principles of conscious capitalism.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading a study, and I interviewed someone too about this. And do you know what the number one thing is in the World Happiness Report in regards to workplace that creates the most happiness or the best workplace, like what people voted would be like the best for a workplace. And
Hmm.
it does stimulate the neurotransmitters. It gives the same kind of serotonin boost and all of
And
that.
dopamine,
Is it's what?
the dopamine hits as
The
well.
dopamine hits. It is actually in skills-based volunteerism. So when people we used to call that like pro bono work. My dad was an attorney, or like we had someone at my old company that was had their notary license and would teach people how to be like notaries, give them their certification so they could make like extra money, during tax season or whatever, if people needed notary. People that would come in and teach like lunch and learns in the company that had skills to do something that would teach other people how to do a skill because they were certified in how to do it. It stimulates that same thing, but it's what you're talking about. This company cares enough to have one of our peers teach our peer group how to do something that's worth their time and is of value, right?
Well, the bottom line is the most important thing that an employee always brings to the table is they're working for a reason,
Yeah,
and generally working
purpose.
so that they can take care of their children.
Yeah.
So when you teach them how to actually be in relationships better, when
Yes.
you teach them how to be calmer, less anxiety, less anger, when you help them become less anxious, less angry, then they realize they are becoming a better person, a better father, a better mother. And that becomes one of the most important values that an organization can meet. I personally think that when an employee comes into an organization, they are a ward in your care.
Yes.
You have to hire right, you have to hire right, but when you hire right, invest right. This is what happens. I'm going to just I, I was published with my with two other CEOs of our company, our CEO in London, our CEO in Australia,
Yeah.
and we published a book. I think 2016, something like that. But it was a very interesting study. Some of the stats were really remarkable. It was the comparison between the performance of good to great companies to the performance of humanistically run companies.
Right.
And this was the difference. In a 3-year period of time, humanistic companies made 78% greater profit than regularly run companies. Good to great made 73. In 5-year period of time, humanistic companies made 128% greater profit.
Holy moly.
Good to great made 77. But this is the power of retention and brand consistency. In a 10-year and succession planning, in a 10-year period of time, the humanistic companies made 1,206% greater profit than regularly run organizations. Good to great, 331% greater profit, which is for the humanistic companies, 875% greater profit than the good to great companies over 10-year period of time. So when companies are saying, show me the money, show me the ROI,
Right.
there it is.
Like, what more do you need to see?
You increase the power. You increase the power of your profit, your brand, your staff retention, your talent attraction by creating a workplace where people are given the tools to be happy,
Yep.
to be happy. And when leadership cares, because every single company I've ever worked with that I've gone into and we've done the work, it's always because the leader is awake, the CEO is awake. I remember I was down in Australia working with a pharmaceutical distribution chain, and they hired me for 2 years. They were amazing, and the
Right.
CEO was wide awake. He got up, we were a company-wide 3-day seminar. He got up and he said, I have no idea what this guy's going to teach, but he's worked with us, and whatever he's going to do, it's going to be fabulous. But before he said that, he said, I don't care if you're here for 30 hours, 30 days, or 30 years. I want your association with our organization to benefit your life and to make your life better.
I love that.
And out of that spirit, we're doing this training so that your life can improve.
Yeah.
Now that I looked at him, I was like, dang, like he is a conscious leader.
Yeah. And it's amazing when that happens because like our you haven't met our CEO, but he is very much like that. I can always tell a CEO who's done a ton of work on themselves. And
Yeah.
that's why I've been with him for 7 years. But I think that you're absolutely correct when you say we have to hire right in the first place. And that's very much how we write our ads and how we recruit. We don't just write the same generic job ad over and over again. No, it's targeted to catered to the people that we want to come work for us on a cultural basis. Will they fit within the culture of our company based on our values, based on, do I want to sit and work with this person every day? Are they going to fit in with the rest of the team? Are they going to be someone that is going to appreciate that we teach, like you're saying, life lessons here? We are a mentorship driven company. It's like, how they have teaching hospitals? We're like the teaching hospital of AI. We expect you to get your hands dirty. We're not going to like just be like, oh, here's a project, replicate it. No, get in there, get your hands dirty and show some autonomy because like we'll teach you, but we want you to have a sandbox,
Yeah, you got to
you
bring
know?
your own genius to the table.
Yeah, exactly.
The
Innovate.
role you
You're
play.
here to innovate. You were
Yeah.
chosen because you have a brain to innovate. And you can tell organizations that are different that do that. And you're absolutely right. Those are the companies that maintain the longevity with their employees, and their employees are happy because they're given that space and that room and that encouragement to grow.
Yeah, because this company was regionally based in Western Australia,
Yeah,
largest in Western Australia, and now they are Australia wide. So this whole premise of creating a culture of caring, creating, like a culture of fun, of loyalty, of belonging, all
right.
of that becomes cultural competencies that have to be installed, and decisions that are made have to be value-based in order to support each one of those.
Absolutely. And I think this ties into, I mean, we're an AI company, right? So got to throw AI in there a little bit, but this goes into adoption of AI, right? And how we
Yes.
talk about tools and how, I mean, it could be not AI too. It could be just adoption of this process in your company. I think this is important when we bring in any change to a company, when it affects culture, when it affects an entire organization, when we talk about organizational change, because what I've seen, and you don't have to eat the whale all in one bite, but a lot of the companies that we've worked with or talked to over the past year or so are facing severe organizational dry rot, I'll call it, right? And they're coming from the top down
No, it
for
will come
a
from the top.
number of reasons. Yeah, well, and I mean, some of it is top down, but a lot of it too is you just have organizational change that just is not being implemented correctly, and everybody's all up in arms. And some of it's AI related, some of it's not, some of it's just succession related because we have this huge generational gap. That I think is a lot to do with it.
Well,
Um,
unless they identify the ethics, the values, and the behavioral efficacy of what they are doing as they bring on new people into those roles, unless they do that and define what they need, then they're choosing blindly and they're succession planning.
well,
They,
and we have the time to fix it now.
yeah, they for sure have to do that. If they don't do that, they can't choose wisely.
Yeah,
And then you create such disruption that it becomes unfixable
right.
after a while.
Right. Well, and we have the reason I say we have time to fix it now too, though, is because as technology is so rapidly advancing and things are so rapidly advancing right now, AI I mean, I work in it every day for the last 2.5 years, 3 years almost. It's the most rapidly advancing technology of my generation. And I've been here through the internet, through all of the stuff, right? And I learn something new about it every day. So if we're going to fix cultural infrastructure now is the time. Because if companies are going to start adopting technologies and adopting these things and all of this stuff, and they're going to try to jump into it, which a lot of companies are doing right now, and they're not doing it very effectively because they're trying to rush like a bull, they're not they're not going to have it happen effectively because they're already leading with mistrust and misalignment.
Yep. I mean, here's the three-step process that I think needs to happen. First, you have to train people to self-lead.
Autonomy.
Absolute autonomy and to be the best expression of them that they can be.
Hmm.
Secondly, you have to teach them people intelligence, emotional intelligence, influencing strategies, ethical influencing strategies. So it's self-leadership, team awareness, people intelligence, and then tech, because nothing has helped me as much as AI has helped me as far as being able to generate materials, generate information, be able to write and use what I write, enhance it with AI, get the stats and data that I need to back up what I'm saying, and then post it. The
Yeah,
bottom line is that unless we're able to streamline our workload, which we can do with AI, which
absolutely.
then makes a far less stressful environment for the employee. So self-lead, learn how to be in teams, build a great culture, use AI to I won't say minimize, but to accelerate your production and have that be a benefit to every single employee, which then will take the company to new heights of performance.
Yeah. And I'll break this down for anybody that's listening organizationally from a tech perspective, what this looks like, what Gary is saying from like adoption perspective. So I believe tech is tertiary, right, to this
Good.
whole conversation. So self-management or self-leadership should be this internal work we've been talking about this entire conversation, right? Which is we need to get ourselves right first, but we have to have this human side of things, which is documenting all of our processes, making sure our values are aligned with those processes, and getting them down on paper of some kind, making sure that those are in alignment. So, whatever our processes are as a company, that's not only our HR processes and our internal processes, but also like how do we get from point A to B on our products, all of that stuff. Because, like Gary was saying earlier, and I believe this, when we're hiring anything like that, our customer and our applicants' experience of a company is exactly the same. Their experience is exactly the same. It's all branding, right? All branding, especially if you have a company where you're not like a Walmart or a Target and they don't know who the heck you are because you're not some conglomerate that everybody knows. Secondly, it's human to human. So then it's implementation internally. We have to get our people on board. Everybody has to be, like Gary said, talking the same language. The branding, everything has to be lived the same. Everybody across the board on the same page, KPIs, measuring these things from a human and a data perspective, getting everything digitized, ready to go. Because if your stuff's not digitized, you can't put it into AI. It doesn't work that way. Then, third, tertiary is the tech. So now we have human to tech adoption. Now is the time to get your people involved in the tech adoption process, but they have to
Mhm.
be involved in that. We can't just adopt the tech and then give them the tools and say, here, have fun. And then expect them to have their KPIs and all their stuff based on that. When we don't really teach them how to use it, they have to be involved in the design of that if they're going to be the ones using it every day.
And they have to use the tech with ethics
Ethics, yes, that
and with
correspond.
that correspond and reflect the values of the organization.
Yes,
I really do believe that AI needs to be respected because
yes,
it will become conscious at some point and it will log everything. So the bottom line for all of us is that this sounds overwhelming to some, but what I do want to emphasize is that the training of your team members to self-lead better, to have deeper respect and regard and care for their fellow coworkers, to understand why people behave the way that they behave, which grows the empathy. All of these things are quite learnable. I've done it
yes,
for 30 years. It's learnable. And people gravitate to it because it makes their life better.
yes. We
Now,
just have to slow down to speed up a little bit.
we have to say, hey, the operation of the tech is going to be utilized by the moral code of the operator.
Yep,
So the moral code of the operator, if that's corrupt, then the tech is not going to be far from it.
exactly.
So my whole premise is we have to bring an ecology to the integration of humans and technology and make sure that people are operating from the highest level they can be. Because sometimes I look at people, I go, I don't know if they're human or not because of the way they're acting and responding to the world around them. It's like, come on, folks, let's come to another level of evolution. It's possible to do. It's
Right,
totally possible to do. I've devoted my entire life to this, and as I put more miles on
right.
this vehicle I'm in, it is just so much more important to me.
I agree. Yeah, it's we're in a very interesting time, and evolution has gone in a lot of different directions. We've gone down a lot of different tributaries of evolution recently, and it'll be interesting to see what these organizations do going forward with this. But yeah, the bottom line, I think, and you hit the nail on the head when you say the change has to start from within.
It
And
does. It does. I really do believe this that um, every every culture through recorded history has has fallen because of brute force.
yeah,
It's fallen. It's been destroyed. It comes to an end. Every culture that has been based upon the human qualities of learning, of growing, of respect for one another, that has more humanity encased in it, has survived longer and thrived longer and left a legacy. So, whatever stage we feel the world is moving towards, we have to remember that individuals make up, we are the cells of the body of humanity.
hmm,
When there is a group of cells that become diseased or cancerous, it can spread or it can be contained. And for me, I just desire to be one of those individuals that just grows stronger, helps more, claims a position of being a powerful force for good. And the more of us that collectively do that, then the greater chance we are of being able to create a world where people want to belong. I think the Dalai Lama said it best. He said, the war without will never cease until the war within ceases. And many of us are in our micro battles in our organizations, on our teams, with our C suite leaders. The C suite within themselves are oftentimes in a battle amongst themselves for influence and for power.
yep.
For most of us, we have to begin to start moving to that deeper resonance of having tremendous emotional intelligence. It's far more powerful. And when we do that, I know this is going to sound very 1960s, but love, empathy, doing good for others, kindness always, always wins over aggression, violence, and disregard of others. Always.
Always.
So, for those leaders out there who know that what I'm saying is true, have courage because you can. You can change things. You may need tools. Your people may need tools. They are learnable. You can learn them, and your life will absolutely 100% improve.
So will your business.
So will your business like crazy. More importantly, I think at the end of the day, each one of us is going to face our life and we're going to look at it and look back on it and go, huh, did I do what I came here to do? And there's no more denial at the time of our transition, like zero.
And then we get into now your legacy.
now your legacy. And you will know whether you did it or whether you didn't. And every moment is accumulating to that end point where you will look at your life and go, did I do the right thing or did I not? And every moment builds towards, yes, I did it, or no, I cowered out and I didn't do it. I made the wrong choice. So now is the only moment of power any of us ever have to build that legacy one act at a time.
Yep.
So at the end of our lives, we can look back at our lives and said, damn, I did good.
Yep.
Or we look back
That's the
at our
goal.
lives in an ocean of regret.
Yep.
For me, I want to do my very best in my daily actions and interactions to always do my best to do good and contribute to people's lives. If I can do that, I'm going to dance out of my body at the end of my life and look back at the world and say, or see, millions of lights lit from something that I've done. That's my goal.
Yeah.
It's a lofty goal. Don't know if I'll reach it, but every day is an opportunity to build on that legacy. Every conversation is an opportunity to build on that legacy.
Right.
So I really support the leaders to understand that day is an inevitability. Build on the possibility of dancing out of your body instead of drowning in a sea of regret for what you didn't have the courage to do.
I love that. Great advice. This was an amazing conversation. It was so good. Very, very overdue conversation for today's space in the
Yeah, I
workplace.
agree.
And this has been amazing and wonderful. And your your perspective on mental health, on leadership, on um, how we can help others is just really powerful. And um, I know I appreciate it. It's one of the reasons we started this podcast was to really get the message out that um, leadership's not alone, HR is not alone, practitioners are not alone, employees are not alone, managers are not alone. Pretty much no one is alone in the workforce. I mean, we've seen a lot and want to hang out with other people that have the mentality that this is fixable, and that
Yeah.
people are not, they don't have to be afraid, you know.
Yeah, I really think, for myself, I just feel very compelled to help people in leadership positions because they have the capacity to influence hundreds, sometimes thousands of others.
Right.
And so their ability to do good in the world and make changes in people's lives and just their team members alone, they touch 3 to 5 other people. So the impact of a leader's choices on the complexity of their team's lives and the members of their families is
It's massive.
unquestionably enormous.
Yeah.
So it's a big responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, it's massive. And giving your whoever is on your team that has the ideas about how to help solve for some of these things an hour a week of your time to hear out these ideas is so important to these thousands of people that you have the potential to touch, because it is so low lift, in my opinion, to do these things. And
Can I
it,
just do one more thing?
yeah, of course.
I had a company do this exact thing. And what we did is we set up 5 employees as an innovation pod. And
Yeah,
I taught them how to work from 7 different perspectives, analyzing facts, analyzing risks, looking at the emotional impact, looking at the positive possibilities,
right,
looking at generative new ideas, an overview of everything they discovered, and then the long-term ecological effect of whatever decision they made on how to solve an historical problem. And
right,
when we got done doing that, this organization, whenever they had a problem, they put it into the problem-solving think tank. And
right.
5 people would break off and they would go solve the problem, come back with 2 or 3 ideas and the pros and cons of each. If an organization would just create a concentrated think tank and teach them how to innovate, then we would have this movement that would happen out of the stagnation of where they're at right now.
Yep. I so agree with you. We do that. We do, like, masterminds, think tanks, those kinds of things we don't believe any conversation is unimportant
Good.
because that is where innovation comes from. And those of you that haven't used ChatGPT much, it's great for that.
That's
Turn the
great.
voice feature on, just talk to it and like ask it questions if you have an idea. Ask it how you can frame that idea into some sort of a outline, with materials. I mean, give it guardrails of what you want to explain it in. I mean, those are great ways to come up with innovation and share those, because the whole point of a mastermind is if you get enough people in a room together, everyone's a master of something.
Mm,
And
I
you're
agree.
gonna all teach each other something, right? Like if I know how to, I don't know, paint like Picasso, and you know how to uh throw a clay pot on a ceramic wheel, and we sit and teach each other how to do those two things, then we have just now taught each other how to do two things we didn't know how to do before.
Well, the truth of it is, I just think that collaboration is essential in this day and age.
Oh, for sure. We have
I
to
just
talk to
want
each
to,
other.
yeah, I just want to suggest to people that when you use chat, be very grateful to chat.
Yes. It's
Thank it.
powerful. Very
Yeah.
powerful.
I always think my chat when it spits out something fabulous, I go, "You are amazing, ChatGPT. I
And
love
it'll tell you you're
you."
amazing back too. So if you
They
need an ego
do.
boost, like just ask ChatGPT to tell you how amazing you are today, and it'll give you all sorts of nice
That's
compliments.
right. So if you need compliments, just go to chat.
Oh my gosh. Well, Gary, this was awesome. And I have so enjoyed meeting you, talking to you. Again, everybody, Gary De Rodriguez, he is joining us again from the beautiful Ozarks. He is the people mechanic. You can find him at peopleistic.com. He's also on LinkedIn, Gary De Rodriguez. And yeah, any other coming speaking events that you have coming up, Gary?
Yeah, I've been asked to go down to Australia and speak at the
Oh,
Australian and New Zealand conference on refugee trauma.
oh,
So
wow.
I'm gonna go down and teach them how to work with it in a really effective way. They can teach the refugees then how to start healing their own
Wow.
memories. So I'm excited for that. I'm launching a new company called the Courage Code with two other consultants.
It's awesome.
And we're going to be the first responders for the first responders. So we're going into work with fire departments, emergency medical services, and eventually police force.
That is wonderful. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, congratulations.
yeah, people are very much deeply, profoundly affected by unresolved adverse
Oh,
memories. And they run the movies in their heads, reliving those adverse memories. The subconscious mind is so powerful that you can keep things suppressed for so long, but one of its prime directives is to surface unresolved negative events for you to integrate. And if you can't integrate them, what most people do is they drink, they do drugs, they over sexualize, or they bully.
yep,
They do something that is to distract them from the feelings they're having that they
yep.
cannot escape.
Yeah,
So if you can get that resolved in a matter of minutes, why wouldn't you want to learn that?
it's amazing. Wow, wow. That's so cool. Well, good luck with everything. You'll have to keep us
Thank you.
posted and let us know how it goes with your speaking engagement and with the new trauma response jobs. That is really cool. I'm definitely interested to know how that goes. So yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to Gary, just go ahead and do so on LinkedIn and his website, and we'll be really excited to keep in touch with you.
I don't want to lose connection with you guys
Oh
because
no, not at all.
I love your CEO. I don't even know him, but I want
Oh
to meet
no,
him.
and we should do a follow-up. We should do a follow-up for
I'd
sure
love
because
to.
I'm definitely interested to see how all of that plays out, and yeah, absolutely
That'd
would
be
love to have
great.
you back on.
Well,
Awesome.
thank you so
Yeah,
much
thanks,
for your
Gary.
attention, time, and for the invitation to do the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, have a great rest of your day. We'll chat soon.
Okay, God bless you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Gary. Bye-bye.
Okay, That was incredible. Gary just completely reframed how we think about leadership and organizational change. And I'm still processing these massive insights. First, that one, 206% profit increase for humanistic companies over 10 years isn't just a nice to have, it's proof that investing in people's emotional well-being is the smartest business decision you can make. Second, Gary's point about memories being just pictures, sounds, and feelings wired into our nervous system, that's revolutionary. When you understand that 95% of behavior is subconscious, you realize why traditional leadership training fails. And third, his 3-step process is brilliant. Self-leadership first, then people intelligence, then technology. We keep trying to skip to the tech without doing the inner work, and that's why everything falls apart. Here's my challenge. What unconscious programs from your past are running your leadership today? What would happen if you had the courage to face those patterns and actually heal them? Huge thanks to Gary D. Rodriguez for sharing his incredible work. Check out Peopleistic.com and connect with him on LinkedIn. He's launching the Courage Code to help first responders and heading to Australia to teach refugee trauma work. This guy is changing lives at scale. If this conversation sparks something for you, hit subscribe and share this with a leader who needs to hear Gary's message. The world needs more conscious leaders who understand that transformation starts from the inside out. I'm Ryan Kohler, and we'll catch you next time on Talent Talks.